Check 1 2. Check 1 2. Let's hope this works. Right. Excuse me. Got a little bit of a. I don't think it's a cold. I had the flu quite recently. I just think it's my sinuses acting up as usual. Anywho, welcome to anyone that might be joining for the stream today. As you may have noticed, we'll be doing things a little differently today. We're currently at Elstree, I believe it's pronounced. Excuse me. As mentioned in the description of the video, this is a relatively small rural airstrip just to the northeast of Heathrow Airport in London. We'll be taking the 206 Jetranger by the FlyInside company all the way from here down to the London Heliport, located on, I believe, the Thames River. Just hang on, I'll be right back. Right, so you just have to bear with me here a little as I figure out the volume settings for this particular aircraft, as I will not be able to manipulate settings outside of the sim because there's no autopilot for this thing. So I'll be pretty hands-on. I've got, in reality, something simulating a collective, pedals, as well as obviously the cyclic. So there you can see my anti-torque pedals moving, the cyclic, and of course the collective. So for those not familiar with the helicopter, or rather the controls of one, I'll just quickly, briefly touch on them before we start the engine up and get on our way here. So as you may have noticed, we have basically three primary flight controls here. We've got what's known as the cyclic, which is essentially just a joystick. And we've got the anti-torque pedal. So not rudder pedals, because this aircraft does not have a rudder like your conventional fixed-wing aircraft. Instead, we've got a tail rotor located here in the tail of the aircraft. And that these pedals allow us to manipulate the pitch of this little rotor to give us control of the aircraft in the yaw axis. This is particularly important when it comes to helicopters, especially ones that have a conventional main rotor and tail rotor configuration. Because the engine is working really hard to spin this rotor system in one direction, the reaction to that effort is a yawing or spin in the opposite direction of the rotor. This is what gives you this torque effect that we need to counteract when we are flying, especially when it comes to hovering the helicopter. And that's what the tail rotor allows us to do. Counteract that torque that the engine produces as a result of turning the main rotor. Probably not the best day to be streaming, as I'm having to periodically clear my throat. I'll try my best to do that while muting the mic, but might not be able to do that in the air. So again, apologies if I annoy anyone with my coughing. Right, so back to the flight controls here. That was the anti-torque pedals, then obviously the cyclic, which is basically a joystick. This will control the angle of the rotor disc when the blades are spinning. And this allows us to basically tilt the helicopter in any direction, allowing us essentially 360-degree control of the aircraft's movement. So pushing it forward will push the nose down, much like an aircraft. Pulling it back will pitch the nose up. And then obviously side to side will give you your roll and everything in between. Unlike an aircraft, the behavior of the helicopter changes depending on what phase of flight we're in. During the cruise, it will behave like a fixed-wing aircraft, just about, with some obvious differences. During the hover, things change, and we'll get to that as we start flying. And the last little flight control here is the collective. It's like this handbrake-like control lever. This, much like the pedals control the pitch of the tail rotor blades, this controls the pitch of the main rotor blades. This is essentially the up and the down of the helicopter, respectively, especially in the hover. When we're flying and we've got some forward speed going, up and down can also be controlled by the cyclic. As mentioned, the helicopter handles a lot like a fixed-wing aircraft in forward flight. But when it comes to the hover, pretty much the only thing allowing us to manipulate the up and down axis of the helicopter is the collective. On the collective, you'll see there's a throttle, and you'll notice that there's this idle release button that pops up. So the engine can be shut down and is shut down by rolling the engine throttle all the way to its cutoff position. So you'd have to push down on that catch, that release button, and then you can cut fuel to the engine by rolling the throttle all the way back to idle or zero or whatever it would be called in real life. To start it, we'll get to that in a second. For now, we're just going to make sure that the aircraft is set up and ready to go for the flight. So that means we're going to have to close all the doors. Unfortunately, they did not model the passengers, but we have 3 passengers on board today with us. And yeah, again, we'll be making our way down to the Thames River. I have a flight plan filed. It's basically going to involve flying to a lake or a reservoir known as the Brent Reservoir. Then we'll find our way to the Wembley Stadium. And then from there, it's pretty much a southward journey to the Thames River, and then we'll follow the Thames River eastbound towards the London helipad. Important to note that I think we'll be capped at about 1,300 feet for the most part once we reach the Thames River. This routing does technically cross into Heathrow's airport, or airspace rather, so we might have to contact ATC if they are online. I'm not sure, I haven't done this before, so I'm not sure how they will route us or how I need to phrase the things I need to say. So, you know, as promised, this is probably going to be an interesting flight. Oh, this reminds me, I need to actually configure, I didn't do this before I started. All right, so as I am looking at the air traffic control, there is no more air traffic control online for us. But what I do need to do is I just need to set a push to talk button for this, for the radio, so that I can at least communicate to one if one does pop online. I don't know how I'm going to tune the radio. That will also be interesting. So yeah, I might lose control of the helicopter a couple times as I mess with the instruments while flying. Fortunately, there's not much I can do about that. Yeah, so before we start, just some more familiarization. Basically, the flight instruments or the cockpit instruments are going to be very similar to that of a fixed-wing aircraft, again with some exceptions. But this is a jet-powered aircraft, so a lot of the instruments you're going to see here, the engine instruments, are going to be familiar to those having flown jet-powered aircraft. We've got a conventional Garmin GPS here. I think it's I can never remember. Is it the 350, the 5? It's a Garmin GPS, and we've got we've got COM1, COM2, COM1 on the GPS, COM2 here, NAV1 on the GPS, NAV2 here, and then we've got our transponder. Down here we've got de-icing switches for the engine, or switch. We've got the hydraulics, so this aircraft the controls are assisted by hydraulic systems, making it a lot more easier to handle the aircraft. So that will remain in the on position. We've got a switch here for our landing lights, a governor switch which allows us to set more precisely what we want the flight idle to be. We've got the starter button here, the idle release catch, allowing us to roll the throttle back all the way to its cutoff position. Then the overhead panel, got the rotor brake, which you need to make sure is off for start, obviously. We've got a bunch of circuit breakers here, and just some basic controls. This is the battery, this is the generator, this is a blower for the windscreen, I believe. This is the pitot heat, directional gyro, power, heating and ventilation control there. The anti-collision and nav lights, the position lights. We've got instrument lights here, and our fuel boost pumps are actually controlled directly by manipulating the circuit breakers for those components. So without further ado, let's get going here. All the doors are closed, and the rotor brake is off. So let's get started. Battery comes on, you'll hear the rotor RPM horn, so we'll just silence that. Check to make sure that all our warning lights are working. My goodness, it's 0 degrees, it's freezing out here. The anti-collision light come on. We don't need the position light for this time of the day. So we're going to make sure that the fuel valve is on. For some reason it is left in the on position by default in this aircraft. So we're going to go ahead and turn on the fuel pumps. Do what we can to make sure that the aircraft, or the area, is clear around the aircraft. And we're going to start her up. So to start her up, you hold the starter in until we get about 15% on this gas producer, and then we roll this to the idle position, the ground idle position. Then we need to watch this turbine outlet temperature and make sure that we do not over temp the engine during the start. In other words, hot start the aircraft. We do not want that. That would ruin the engine. So we need to watch out for that and abort the start if it looks like we're going to over temp the engine. And then we're going to continue monitoring the start as we would with any other turbine engine, making sure we don't have any hung starts in addition to hot starts. All right. So we've got power to the aircraft. We can see here that we've got about 3/4 of fuel, which is more than enough for the journey. And there should be a way for us to figure out what the battery is. I don't know where we get the amps or the voltage of the battery. It should be here somewhere. It's normally part of the chronometer or something. Anyways, we'll just assume that that's good. Let's put this to 1228. No, actually, that will be here. But let's start this up. Where's the enter button? There it is. All right, so we'll allow the GPS to find its satellites and spool up while we start the engine. So here we go. Rotor brake is off. Looks like the area is clear. And we're going to start by holding the starter switch in. In fact, let's see if we can get the collective in the image here. All right, here we go. Starter button. There's 10%. Come up to 15% there. We're going to slowly roll. There it is, watching for that hot start. Got close, but we're good. The rotors are spinning. The temperature is settling. Now we keep the starter button in until we get to 60% gas producer. There it is. We release the starter. And we allow the engine to spool up. We're going to bring it up to about 60%. We start 1 minute on the clock here, just to give it a bit of a warm-up. All right, I'm just going to try and see if you can, I'm going to test out the sound here to see if you can hear me properly. Wait, I'm going to be honest, this is a bit louder even for me. All right. In fact, let's put on the earphones here. Doesn't do much. All right. Okay, it was a lot louder for me than it was for you guys. I hope this sounds good. Check. All right, I was muted. Sorry. Let me just bring the volume down a little bit there. So yeah, in order to turn the generator on, we need to have at least about 70% of the RPM. So there's 70% minimum. The generator can come on. The pitot heat can come on. We can get power to the directional gyros. We can get heating. We can keep there. We can put the defogger blower on. You can see that the artificial horizon has been caged. We're going to look at the magnetic compass here and align our directional gyro. And we're going to set the airfield altitude, which I believe I already did. Yep, so that's fine. So our radios are set. I think this is the VFR squawk code of the UK. So we're going to put you to on just because I'm not going to be able to do that once I'm ready to fly. All right, so we're going to throttle her up to full to the flight idle here. In doing that, we need to make sure we keep the torque under 40%. So we don't want to roll the throttle too quickly, otherwise it's going to exceed the 40% mark there. I'm just going to get close to it and slowly roll this throttle all the way to its full position here. You see the low rotor RPM light has gone out already. And we're going to wait. There we go. She settles at what's known as flight idle, at which point we are ready to fly. Let me just check to make sure again the volumes are right, because this is what the volume is going to be like while we fly. Alright, I believe the volume's good. We're going to set our radius here, 122.8 for the Unicom. Let's see if we can find this airport in our nearest airport. I believe it's from EGLW or something like that. Put in London City just so I can kind of get an idea of where, the right direction, because it's on the way to the London City airport. Alright, so just kind of get a general reference here of where we're going. My goodness, there we go. Alright, 1228 set. Alright, squawk is set, and we're ready to go. I'm going to turn on my track IR here and see if it's going to work. Alright, looks like it's working. So we're going to slowly bring up the collective, and as we increase collective, the torque on the engine is going to increase, so we're going to need to counteract that torque with our pedals preemptively. Now, excuse me, this is probably not going to be a pretty takeoff because it does take like 5 minutes for me to get used to.
Established on ILS people.
It does take me quite a while to get used to the handling of this aircraft, so let's see if we can find more or less. I find that if you can keep it in the center, some helicopters there's a sweet spot. Most helicopters have a sweet spot. For this particular one, it's sort of around here. And here we go. So you can watch the torque gauge increase as I raise the collective. Okay, I can see we're going to be drifting in a bit forward, so I'm going to pull back on the cyclic a bit. Got pedals in, up, 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 up. Up, up, up. You see what I mean? Goodness. We're just going to align ourselves here with the taxiway. And I'm going to start climbing so that we can get away from all the surrounding aircraft. I don't want to blow our rotor wash on them. I'm supposed to check to see if there are aircraft coming or going, but we're just going to assume there isn't. Didn't have time for it. Alright, like I said, not pretty, but acceptable, workable. Oopsie. And handling very differently today. I don't know what. It's the weather. So we're just going to fly around the airport just for me to get used to the handling characteristics here. So generally speaking, we've got the torque gauge here, and we want to stay out of the yellow. It's acceptable to be there, I think, not for extended periods of time.
025, sorry, 052, short final runway 24.
So we can see that there's power lines there. That's like the helicopter's #1 killer, so we want to make sure we stay well above those as we just fly a short little right-hand circuit here, just to get used to the handling characteristics of the helicopter. I think I have the lights on. Oh, now they're on. Just for extra visibility. And we're off. Actually, what I should have done also was put on the strobe lights, so I can do that without losing control of the helicopter. That's the strobe lights, I think. Alright. Get control of her again. Alright, so we're kind of on a short base here, so or we can turn onto a short base here. Wow, power lines everywhere. So keep an eye on those as we make our way down. Let's do a short final here. Blade slap. Right, that distracted me a little bit. The views there, so we're a little bit fast. Alright, so to slow a helicopter down, you pitch back and you make sure that you gradually bring the collective. As the helicopter slows down, you need to add more collective to keep yourself level.
052, departed runway 24. So
as you get slower, more torque on the engine, so you need to be very active on the pedals and make sure you stay pointing in the direction you're supposed to be pointing. Just keeping ourselves level as we slow down here. Now, important to note, you don't want to descend too fast in the helicopter, as you can get the helicopter in sort of your own wake turbulence, so to speak, and you could drop out of the sky pretty quickly if that happens, because the rotors lose the ability to generate lift at that point. You saw the helicopter shudder there a little bit, which is quite nice little feature of this helicopter. Helicopters, as you transition from in and out of the hover, there is that shudder as you move out of the transitional lift phase, or move through the transitional lift phase, in and out of that phase. All right, so we're hovering. Got a good sense of where the pedals need to be. So let's see if we can get ourselves down on the ground here, just nice and gentle, like. I don't think I don't think many people fly to this airport on the network, so I'm not too worried about being in the way of any other aircraft in the area. Alright, down. Not too pretty, but I managed to arrest. So you don't want to be moving sideways when you touch down, because the helicopter can tip over, get in what's known as a dynamic roll. So yeah, try and stay out of that. The goal is to be as steady as you are in the hover before you touch the skids down on the tarmac. All right. So I believe that we need to be heading to the east here. So opposite direction. Do what's known as like a torque pedal turn or whatever. One of the nice things about a helicopter is basically you have this 360-degree freedom of movement. All right. So look at the engine instruments again. Everything looks like it's in the green, so here we go. Pitch forward a little bit. You'll notice the helicopter wants to lose altitude, so you need to bring the collective up to counteract that. As you get through transitional lift, you'll find that you'll need to use less collective to keep yourself airborne. Alright, so there we go. We're gonna climb out now so we can get above these trees. Alright, so a lake around here somewhere. We're really lost here a little bit. It's not good. There's the lake, okay. I think we go past this lake, so I can pull up my little map. This lake, which should bring us to a highway, and we follow the highway until we get to the Brent Reservoir, I believe it's called. And like come off, and we're going to stay below 1,500 feet here just to make sure we don't cross into any airspaces. Beautiful little bit of scenery here. I believe, so we need to find a roadway here that should lead me to our first landmark. I believe this is the roadway. I mean, you can see right out the window that that is basically London City out there, so that's where we want to go, but we're trying to get there in a very specific way in order to keep air traffic control happy with us. The map that I'm looking at says the roadway should be branching out a little bit more to our left here. Oh, there it is. Okay, I see it. This is basically VFR navigation. I mean, you're using landmarks out in the real world. Again, this is where FlyInside 2020 comes into its own compared to other simulators, and you can use actual landmarks in the sim with real world maps to make your way from one point to another. And this road we need to follow until we get to that Brent Reservoir. Hoping we don't get ATC now, because I will not be able to change my radio frequency. Right, question, do I follow this highway? I think so. I'm not even touching the collective now, the collective is set. You know, in reality these collectives, you know, you can set and release these collectives. You don't have to keep your hand on them the whole time. But keeping an eye on our altitude, making sure that we're not, you know, getting above 2,000 feet here, or actually, like I said, I'd like to stay below 1,500. That's so cool, man. This is so immersive. I have to say, this time of year, weather in this part of the world is crap. It's really nice. Like, I've been trying to fly VFR in the UK using real world weather for like weeks now, and it's just been really crappy weather. So, taking advantage of the sun here as I would in real life. I was a millionaire and I had my own helicopter. I lived in the UK. So there's the Brent Reservoir, I think it's called. Now we need to look for Wembley Stadium. Oh, I think that's it right there. We'll fly over the reservoir. We no longer need to follow the road. So 100 knots indicated is kind of a nice little, it was kind of, I'd say, an ideal cruise speed for it. This helicopter. So we follow, so there's the Brent Reservoir, the stadium, and then there's an intersection I need to be aiming for. So I'm drifting up here a little bit, manipulating the map in the background. there's Wembley Stadium. So cool that you're able to see these landmarks in reality. And then there should be an intersection at the end of this roadway here. It's known as, what was it called again? Hanger Lane. A little bit higher, so I'm push your nose down. There's Wembley Stadium. At some point, I don't know if we've reached that point yet, but we will, be flying along a defined helicopter route, and that helicopter routing dictates that we need to be below 1,300 feet. So instead of capping ourselves at 1.5 now, we have to limit ourselves to 1,300 feet. So 1,000 feet is good for now. We need to find a park. We're still looking for that. I believe this is Hanger Lane here. This big intersection just off the nose of the helicopter. So now we need to look for Brentford or something. Brentford Park. But Brentford is just before the river, and I can see the river in front of us. So we're going to follow this roadway, which will take us straight to Brentford. I mean, this is what people have to do in real life, they have to, the pilots, there's predefined routings. This is extremely busy airspace in real life. In fact, maybe I should turn on the, let's see if I can do that. I don't know if it's going to mess things up for me, but let's try it. If it's really going to kill the performance, I'll stop it. But let's turn on, I've got this, this traffic plugin. It will inject real world traffic into the simulator. So let's see if it works. Alright, sorry. Control a little bit. Focus is off the flying. I'm back. Right, so I hope I'm not been muted this whole time. No, that's something that's working so far. Alright, here's the river. Let's pull up these other charts that I have. At the river, it's going to need to stay above 800, 500 and 1,000, so let's try and stay at 1,000 feet here. Get back up there. This would be the sweet spot. Yeah, we just have to follow the river. I think we'll fly past the helipad just so that we can actually, I haven't toured London yet in the sim properly, so let's try that out. I've been making announcements, but I don't really think people are going to understand my references, so yeah, I mean, according to the diagrams, you have to basically snake along this. You have to follow the curvature of the river. Here we are, 1,000 feet. Pretty much just under 100 knots. Still have plenty of fuel. And we're going to go past the helipad so we can explore a little bit here. In fact, let me put on the put on the point of interest so we can know what we're looking at. Let's do that. So let's quickly do that. How do I do that again? I think it's assistance, points of interest, landmarks. Alright, so we should get some labels for all the landmarks that we might be, that we should come across here. Alright, not much pedal action needed here when you're in the cruise because the vertical fins stabilize at the tail of the aircraft. They give you some extra stability. There we go. All these little landmark pointers that we're going to are visible now. This is so cool. Looks beautiful. I can't believe the weather is so good. I almost feel like the sim isn't loading the right weather in. Maybe it isn't.
Heathrow traffic speed for 879, currently descending for runway 27 right. And we are direct peak for the Apollo 1 hotel arrival.
Heliport should be close. Oh my goodness, we've got air traffic control online now. 19725. Alright, let's see if I can do this without crashing. Nope, that's 1.8.
Spirit 879 for direct Hello, stop descent level 80, squawk 2773.
802773, 829.
Let's see if you can hear us. What's his call sign? Check it out here. Heathrow Director. Heathrow Director, Helicopter Golf Alpha Whiskey Golf Uniform.
Helicopter Golf Alpha, Golf Alpha, Whiskey Golf Uniform for director. Hello, I just see you inside the London airspace now. Pass your details.
We're overhead the River Thames here, making our way to the London's the heliport. Might want to route past just to see the city a bit and then route back to the heliport.
Golf Alpha, Golf Uniform, if you could squawk 7030 for me.
7030 Golf Alpha Whiskey Golf Uniform. I think that was what it said, right? 7030?
Spirit 879, at turn left now, heading to 60 degrees.
Alright.
Left 260, speedbird 879.
Back to 1000, I kind of lost control there for a bit, but we're back in control. Got air traffic control now. I think we're past.
Golf Uniform, thank you, and report your altitude.
Currently 1000 feet, Golf Alpha Whiskey Golf Uniform.
Golf Uniform, thank you, identified. Just continue currently on the Hotel 4 for eastbound routing.
Affirmative.
Golf Uniform, roger.
Alpha Whiskey Golf Uniform. Permission to continue eastbound, just to do a little bit more sightseeing and then return to the airfield westbound.
Yep, Golf Uniform, you can route Hotel 4 eastbound and let me know when you're ready to route back to the London City.
Continue Hotel 4 eastbound and we'll let you know on our way when we're ready to proceed back to Whiskey Golf. Thanks.
And Golf Uniform, thank you. And the London QNH now 1006.
1006, Whiskey Golf.
If a director, good Morning, speedbird 308, position 512, QNH 1007.
Alright, so that wasn't too bad.
Information eyes
We've
are
got
requested
the
clearance.
London Eye down there. I think.
308, I'll stand by. Brakes, speedbird 879, descent altitude 4,000 feet, QNH 1007, you're landing 27 right.
Oh, this is so cool.
Descent
Oh my
4000
goodness,
feet,
it actually
QNH
rotates.
1007, we are landing
Check that.
27 right, speedbird 879.
Speedbird 879, turn right, heading 080 degrees, your range is 27 track miles from
I
touchdown.
need to just check my charts here.
Roger, 79.
Hotel 4.
Just can you read back the heading for me, 080 degrees.
Heading 080, 879.
Speedbird 308, your clearance is to Barry,
Slow
line
down
about
a little
6
bit
1
here.
Golf departure, squawk 6475. 6475, max at 1 Golf, speedbird 308. Speedbird 308, correct.
London is coming up. What's the walkie-talkie? Just gonna deviate here a little bit so I can fly over the Tower of London so I can be on my side of the window. There it is. Well, frames are dropping a bit. I don't know if it's because of the traffic I've injected. I wonder if we see traffic at the heliport. Sure, we're not going to really go too far into London.
Speedbird 879, just begin descent to 4,000 feet.
Expedite descent 4000 feet, 879.
Alright, I'm back. Sorry, let's mess around with maps again. Alright, we're going to turn off this traffic ejector thing because I'm scared it's causing frame rate issues. Alright, back to cockpit. Okay, as I'm flying a little bit slower, and I think I'm being a bit more subject to the wind out here, I'm having to use my feet a lot more, just pointing in the right direction.
Speedbird 879, turn left heading 360 degrees.
Yeah, there's the
360,
London
879.
City Airport there, so we're going to turn around so we don't actually go in the way of that. So we're going to turn around here. We'll find a landmark. What's the landmark there? That's on Greenwich. That doesn't sound like a very famous landmark. Alright, we're going to turn around now. Maybe somebody else shoot as well. Not to disturb anyone.
Speedbird 879, turn left heading 290 degrees, establish localizer 27 right.
Left to 990, establish localizer to 7 right. 879.
Say we're just east of the London Bridge. And helicopter Golf uniform is just east of the London Bridge, moving back.
Blocked.
Speedbird 879, also establish descend on the glide path.
Once established, descend on the glide
Step on
path,
someone.
879.
Helicopter Golf uniform approaching London Bridge from the east, moving back to the London heliport.
Golf uniform, roger. You can continue Hotel 4 west, westbound. And there'll be standard operating altitudes VFR, report when you have the London's heliport in sight.
Hotel 4 westbound and report heliport next in sight. And I do have a chart for that, I think. This guy. Let's see much from sorry, I've got the chart open. I'm flying with my left hand here. Alright. Basically, I'm just going to make it too high here. Limit seems to be 2,000 feet in this part of the river, so we're still good.
Speedbird 879 established localized at 7 right.
Speedbird 879, thank you, runway 27 right, you're clear to land, the wind's 270 degrees, 4 knots.
Clear to land to 7 right, Speedbird 879.
Alright, so there's Hotel 4, I can actually see it on the chart. I don't see any restrictions apart from the 1,000-foot restriction. So we'll stay at about 1,300, I guess. 1,500 to be honest. So yeah, we can stay high up. Up on the higher side. Okay, we got the London Eye here on our left.
0308, 512, request push and stop. 0308, your push and start is approved, face south.
I'm just gonna turn off the point of interest stuff here quickly, because it is a bit distracting. Okay, so we need to stay above 1,000 feet in this part of the river. Sure, 1,100. We can update our directional gyro and make sure we've got the local QNH still set. So many bridges on the track. Looking for the Chelsea Bridge. I think this is the Chelsea Bridge underneath us. I need to be seeing the heliport soon. Yeah, it's the Chelsea Bridge underneath us. The heliport is just after this corner. I don't see it though. Still need to be above 1,000 feet. And we see it. Struggling to see it. By a bridge? I think I see it. Helicopter Golf Golf Uniform, we have the heliport site.
Golf Golf Uniform, are you willing to land there or just to do a couple of circuits?
To land.
Golf Golf Uniform, Roger, land is on your discretion. The city's winds 270 degrees, 3 knots.
And at our discretion, helicopter Golf Golf. Alright, so that means the wind's coming from my right. That's really calm, so shouldn't be too much of a factor. So we're coming in pretty high, pretty steep, so this is where we need to watch out for, descending into our own dirty air, our own wake turbulence, basically. We're going to try and keep the vertical speed above negative 1,000, and making sure we still got a decent forward speed, so if we do get into that state, we can push forward and get out of it. I do see the helipad. Well, not now. It's behind the instruments, but it should be on my left. There it is. I'm just going to come slowly in here. And I do want to make a little bit of an experiment. Okay, so keep in mind we've got a tailwind now, so we need to be wary of that. Alright, so there we go. We're going to land on this H, or at least come in over this H here. Alright, I'm going to stop talking because I need to concentrate.
Squid 879, welcome to Heathrow, right at Alpha for stand 509.
Right on Alpha for stand 5,
Take number 1
879.
It's stand 509.
Stand 509, correction, 879.
Good 308, request taxi, Able November for Echo.
So 308, Roger, taxi Alpha, hold November for Echo.
Alpha holding November for Echo, Super 308.
And we're down. Whew, that was stressful. Turn off our transponder here so he knows we're on the ground. Turn off my camera, my head tracker. And here we are, ladies and gentlemen, at the London City Heliport. So cool. The buildings look like 4D scanned 3D buildings. I mean, if Asobo were going to go and went through all the trouble to recreate this helipad, you would think they would at least make sure that the surrounding buildings were properly rendered. But anyways, we're down, nice and safe. So yeah, we'll give it about a 2-minute cool down period here. Turn off the things we don't need while we wait. Waiting for it to cool down.
Good afternoon, Steve Concord 90484.
Basically, we need to shut the aircraft down.
With Alpha.
Hold on.
We've got
It's just the radio there. So we have to push the idle release in and then close the throttle. So, oh, it already did that. All right, already pushed it in. So close the throttle. It kills the fuel to the engine, and the engine spools down. We're gonna just shut off the fuel valve here. Actually, before we do that, we need to actually get the pumps off. Pumps are off. Engine's slow enough to use the rotor brake. There you go. I like to just keep the rotor brake off just because I tend to forget that engaged. And the battery power can come off, as well as the anti-collision lights. So yeah, welcome to the London Heliport. All the way from Elstree. Did a nice little scenic buzz through London. yeah, we'll leave it at that for this one. I will do some more flying in a little bit more, a little bit later from now. Until then, hopefully I'll see you guys. I will be streaming that flight. Still kind of making my mind up with regards to where we will be flying. But until then, thanks for joining if you did join. And I'll see you in the next one.